In this module, we're going to cover the broad range category of charcuterie. The objectives for this module are: define the term hors d'oeuvre, discuss various types of hors d'oeuvres, prepare and serve a variety of cold and hot hors d'oeuvres including canapés, identify and describe international hors d'oeuvres, and choose hors d'oeuvres that are appropriate for the meal or the event. An important distinction of hors d'oeuvres is that they are served before or separately from the meal. This is in contradiction to appetizers, which are typically served as part of the meal, and it is designed to whet the appetite. Appetite teasers. In fact, the term hors d'oeuvre is a French term to translate into outside the meal. Some examples of hors d'oeuvres include crudité, candied salmon, flatbreads, and etc. Here is a variety of different pictures of some of the different styles of hors d'oeuvres that we'll be talking about. Canapés are tiny open-faced sandwiches. They can be sweet, they can be savory, they can use any kind of different base for their sandwich, and we'll talk more about those. Crudité is a raw or slightly blanched vegetable. So, for instance, a platter of carrots and celery served with chicken wings is a crudité. Dips are served hot or cold as accompaniment to crudités, crackers, chips, toasts, breads, and other styles of food. So think of hummus or baba ganoush. And caviar is the salted roe of a sturgeon fish. Canapés consist of several components. The base is made of either breads or toasts, crackers, or firm vegetables. It could also be little small pancakes called bellinis. It could be a round of cucumber. A spread, which provides the flavor, usually a flavored butter or cream cheese, something that's going to act in contrast to the base. If the base has a crispiness, you want a spread that's going to have a smooth creaminess. And then the garnish. Typically, when we say garnish, what we're referring to here is going to be a dominant or complement flavor. In this case, in the example used, you have a little bit of rye toast with the chev, which is a goat cheese mixed with herbs, and then the salmon on top of that. And a variety of foods can be used for this style of garnishing. Here are just some examples of different kinds of garnishes and different kinds of canapés that can be made. A little shrimp toast, various different accoutrements on top of a piece of bread. These are pastry shells that have been filled. You have the bellini pancakes in the front. You have the little hollowed out pastry shells in there, little waffle shells, which are typically savory. You can have red meat on there, or you can have seafood on there. In this case, we've got a little bit of both. The seafood, which is a shrimp mousse, is complemented by the cool crispness of the cucumber. Again, this is a nice little batter twill made with a batter that's, in this case, it's mixed with a little bit of Parmesan cheese to give it some of that flavor in there. Various different styles of crudité, including different colors, and you want to have your canapés rather. You want to have your canapés bright and flavorful and colorful looking. You want a variety of them, and you want them artfully decorated on the platter. And then, of course, we've got our deviled eggs as well. When slicing bread for canapés, you want to start with a slice that's cut into several shapes to avoid any waste. Always start with a square slice of bread. In this case, this is a nice square piece that's been, the crust has been cut off of it. The long pieces here are actually 3 pieces side by side, and you can see how they can be cut to maximize its utilization. Crudité is the French word meaning raw thing. Crudités are raw or slightly blanched vegetables. Almost all vegetables can be used. You do want to have vegetables that have a bit of a crunch to them. If your vegetables are limp, or let's say for instance like a celery and it's not really crisp, you can soak it in ice water ahead of time and this will re-crisp the vegetable. Generally served with some kind of dips, a nice hummus or a baba ganoush or some kind of thickened dip. We'll talk more about dips in just a moment. Only the freshest and best looking produce should be used for this. You really don't want your produce that's got burns on it or brown spots. You don't want produce that's limp or doesn't look very good or is wilted. You really want the freshest product to go out for this particular item. Dips can be served hot or cold. They can be served with crackers or chips, toast, bread, or other food to accompany crudités. You can serve it with a nice pita bread, a soft bread if it's a hearty dip. Or if it's a thin dip, you want to serve it with something that's going to give it a little bit more body associated with it. Cold dips commonly have the base of mayonnaise, cream cheese, or sour cream, whereas hot dips will typically have the base of a bechamel or a cream sauce or a cheese sauce. Caviar is roe or eggs from the sturgeon family of fish. It's considered a delicacy, often eaten raw as an appetizer, with some caviar fetching a high price. Historically, the most prized type of caviar come from the Caspian and Black Seas, but due to overfishing, caviar is now produced around the world. So let's talk a little bit about caviar versus fish roe. All female fish lay eggs to reproduce. Therefore, they have a roe. Not all fish roe is suitable for human consumption, however, and only sturgeon roe is usually considered for caviar. Caviar that's imported comes in several different styles and different quality grades. Beluga caviar is the most expensive. It's dark gray with well-separated eggs. Osetra is considered by some to be the best medium-sized, golden yellow to brown eggs. Sevruga, which is quite small and light to dark gray. And pressed caviar is made from osetra or sevruga, hung and then drained in a cloth. For domestic caviar, the American sturgeon caviar is considered to be the same quality as its imports. Golden whitefish is small and very crisp roe and has a unique color to it. Lumpfish is readily available and reasonably priced. This is going to be on the lower end of the caviar, and as you can see from the red color, this is not a natural red. This is dyed typically with a food grade dye. You might find this in lower grade sushi restaurants. And then salmon caviar, these eggs are large with good flavor and a natural orange color. The process of making caviar is quite simple. They literally just salt the eggs and allow it to cure in the salt over a period of time. Hot hors d'oeuvres can be served in a variety of different ways, including filled pastry shells such as barquettes, which is a shape, tartlets, eclair puffs or profiteroles, or bouchées. Skewers and brochettes can be used, small skewers holding combinations of various different foods, such as a skewer holding a meatball or a skewer holding a piece of grilled meat. Meatballs. Don't forget about the meatballs. There's a reason why Swedish meatballs are so common all around the world. Miniature sliders, and it's not just a miniature hamburger. We're talking about a little small piece of pork belly on a little miniature brioche bun. Hors d'oeuvres wrapped in cheese, meat, or vegetables, such as rumaki, which is bacon-wrapped foods on a small skewer. Hors d'oeuvres wrapped in a dough, such as phyllo dough, which is a paper-thin wheat dough sheets, pie crust or puff pastry, and wonton skins. And then other kinds, a variety of filled or wrapped foods and items, including stuffed potatoes, small fritters, even chicken wings. A lot of different cultures have traditions for serving finger foods in small dishes before the meal. In Italy, the antipasti, which is a savory, salty foods to whet the appetite. From the Middle East and North Africa and Greece, Turkey, and places such as that, Algeria, you've got meze, which is small plates of assorted salads like hummus and baba ganoush. In Spain, there's tapas, the small portions, either hot or cold savory foods, including items like chorizo and shrimp and garlic sauce and olives. And then from Russia, we've got zakusui, which is in Russian means small morsels. These are served before the meal typically, things such as a nice caviar, smoked fish, or pickled vegetables. Hors d'oeuvres can be a precursor to a dinner, or they can be served to the guest as the only food offered at a banquet. Butler service is also known as passed or trade hors d'oeuvres, and it's presented to the guest on trays. Buffet service is both hot and cold hors d'oeuvres, and they can be presented on trays displayed on a buffet table or in chafing dishes. Various different types of passed hors d'oeuvres and plated hors d'oeuvres, using things such as cups or, in this case, glasses and toothpicks. You can use plastic as well. They do have a lot of acrylic things now that look really nice that are disposable. Skewers. You can't discount skewers because skewers are perfect for these style of small hors d'oeuvres. They can be picked up and the skewers be disposed of readily easily, or you can even use in place of skewers forks. They do make disposable forks that look like the real deal as well. Spoons are a big thing these days, especially if you have anything that has a sauce on it. You can use the spoon to contain the sauce as well. And you can use a spoon tree to have multiple spoons displayed in the case of this. Or you can use edible spoons. In this case, this is a Parmesan that's used, that's cooked into a batter and then cooked into a spoon shape using a special tool. And then you've got your salad served with that. Also, things such as bellinis, which are pancakes, little miniature savory pancakes, are typically served with a little creme fraiche and caviar. This is a very typical style of appetizer you might see. And then the sampler appetizers. I mean, this is everything from the small spring rolls, the mini sliders, the various different things. This uses all the different aspects of the hors d'oeuvre presentation. Using small shooter glasses in the case of a shrimp cocktail, skewers again for the meatballs. Using endive. Endive is a small chicory, or it's in the chicory family, which is a bitter green, and it can be used as a container for various different stuffings. In this case, this looks like a little hopping john. And then figs, a natural pairing of figs and blue cheese with a little bit of serrano ham and some baby arugula to give it a little bitterness to it. It mix really, really well. And then, of course, this is our stuffed mushroom caps and our Belgium endive. Again, that uses the endive as not only a serving vessel, but as part of an edible component of it as well. Especially if you have things that are overly sweet or overly creamy, the endive will give you a little bittering flavor and give you a little bit of texture as well. Additionally, martini glasses are a good way of doing this. You can also use smaller glasses that make a smaller version of a martini glass. It's also disposable. But don't forget about things such as deviled eggs. Deviled eggs are quite often overlooked as an appetizer, or an hors d'oeuvre rather. And they are edible, but you can pick them up and you can use just one bite and they're done. And then probably the most overlooked of all the hors d'oeuvres is sushi. Sushi tends to be lumped in its own category, but we forget that this is meant to be finger food. You are not etiquette-wise bound to use chopsticks with sushi. It is perfectly acceptable to take a sushi piece and pop it in your mouth, unless it is strictly only fish. So let's summarize and talk about some of our key takeaways for this lecture. Takeaway number one is hors d'oeuvres are differ from appetizers in that appetizers are usually a precursor to the meal, whereas hors d'oeuvres are usually served as a standalone. Now, that's not to say that appetizers, or rather hors d'oeuvres, cannot be served with the meal, but they are typically served separate from the meal, whereas appetizers are considered a component of the meal. Number two, canapes can be made with a variety of bases, spreads, and garnishes, and are easily the most versatile form of hors d'oeuvres. They can be done with meats or cheeses or vegetables or various different kinds of things, and it can be as colorful and as flavorful as you want. Crudités are more than just raw vegetable trays that you see at the grocery store. You want to serve them artfully and have a variety of different items. Also, think about how that tray is going to look in the next hour when everybody gets a hold of it. You also want to have smaller versions of these trays to where you can change them out more frequently. Even when they get about halfway destroyed, you don't want to leave it sitting there with just a little bit of food on it. You always want to keep them fresh and updated. Dips are a good accompaniment to crudités, but also be aware of the double dipper. Because of them, we tend to serve single servings of these items now. Caviar is more than just the cheap stuff on top of sushi. Good caviar pops in the mouth with a creamy, salty flavor and pairs well with a little creme fraiche and champagne. And number six, hors d'oeuvres are relatively easy to make. They're low-cost alternatives to doing a plated sit-down dinner. Many times they're easily prepared ahead of time and can be kept cold until service. Sprinkle in a few hot hors d'oeuvres, and now you're making money.